17 from the Reliance Astrodome in Houston, Texas. 60-odd thousand people packed this arena to see the show. I'm pretty sure it was a record at the time. It probably still stands there to this day. WWE have a habit of this because their practice area takes up such a small space. They can pack so many more seats in there and they can break so many records, and it's a huge advantage of theirs because it makes it seem even more popular than what it actually is. This is widely renowned WrestleMania 17 2001 as the best WrestleMania of all time. This show, in my opinion, is the culmination of the Attitude Era. Let's get into it, shall we? First match on the card, Chris Jericho defends his IC title against William Regal. He successfully defends it, he wins the match. This match was not disappointing, but it wasn't as good as you would have thought it could have been from William Regal versus Chris Jericho at WrestleMania, especially when both of these guys are sort of in their prime at the time. It was a good match, don't get me wrong, but it was more towards the average mark than the excellent mark. Next match, APA and Taz beats the Right to Censor. Basically, the storyline going into this was the Right to Censor, which was Stevie Richards leading Bull Buchanan, the Godfather, and Val Venus. Thing of it, Val Venus and the Godfather have both been like basically taking advantage of women for years and years and years, and Stevie Richards had converted them. No, we're going to be good, we're going to portray good views to the American public, to the world, and we're going to censor the bad stuff. But then the AP and Taz thought, no, we're not going to let you do that, we're going to fight you at WrestleMania. So here we are, 6-man match. Basically, like I've said in other videos before, this was just done to sort of throw a load of guys on the card at the same time. And they did give a good reason for this match happening. APA and Taz ended up getting the win. This is a pretty short match, under 5 minutes. Nothing too much to say about it in all honesty, but it was reasonable. Next match, Kane versus Raven versus The Big Show for the hardcore title. Raven's defending his title. An interesting thing in this match is, obviously it's a hardcore title match, so they spill out outside the ring and they end up fighting through the back and end up, you know, it's just a massive thing where they just go all over the building. And it was an entertaining thing at the time, like, oh, I wonder what sort of stuff they can get involved in backstage. Well, one of the things they did was Raven sort of jumps on this like golf buggy sort of thing and starts driving it when Big Show jumps on the back. Well, when Big Show jumps on the back, Raven like sort of loses control of it a little bit and sort of like drives into this like chain link fence. And as he does that, he sort of goes over this power cable. And what that power cable was the cable that was giving the live feed of the show and sending it worldwide. If that golf buggy had just like gone a little bit further, and it could have taken that cable out of whack, unplugged it, cut it a little bit, disconnected it a little bit, and the live feed of WrestleMania would have been lost. The apparent greatest WrestleMania of all time could have ended at match 3 because the power cable would have been cut. Obviously they might have had a backup cable that they could have used, but I don't know, would they have had a backup cable? Because they would have thought, no, what's the likeliness of it breaking? It's never broke before. So I don't think they would have had that. And Raven could have been in huge shit at that moment, and WWE could have been in huge shit because this is a massive show. And if they'd bought it at that time, with all the people from all over the world going to WrestleMania, that would have been awful for the WWE. That could have not ended them, but that could have been a huge PR disaster. But yeah, the match ended up continually going. The show kept on. The golf buggy luckily didn't break the cable. The feed continued. And Kane won the match and won the hardcore title. Next up, European Championship match with Eddie Guerrero going against Test. One-on-one match. Test was the champion. I don't really remember the storyline reason going into the match at the time. But basically, the Radicals, Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko helped Eddie Guerrero to cheat, get the win, and win the European Championship. Next match, Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit. Now, this is exactly what you expect from these two guys. This is a very good match, and in my opinion, this is one of four outstanding matches on the card. That's 4 really good matches on the card. But I'll talk about that at the end. This is a very good match. Kurt Angle beats Chris Benoit at the 14-minute 2-second mark. Next match, Chyna beats Ivory in a women's title match in a quick squash match. Chyna, obviously she was the strongest diva of the company at the time. She's been booked really strongly. She deserved to have the title. Next up, street fight match. Vince McMahon versus Shane McMahon. The television's most dysfunctional family is at it again. You know, JR said it last year at WrestleMania and he says it again this year. That Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon and the entire McMahon family, they're the television's most dysfunctional family. They're so dysfunctional. They argue within each other. The storyline going into this was that Linda McMahon, Vince's wife, was sort of not in a coma, but because she wasn't asleep, but she was awake. She was aware of her surroundings, but she couldn't do anything. She could just sit in a wheelchair, and Vince McMahon would cheat on her with Trish Stratus in front of her and openly be kissing Trish Stratus in front of her. Shane McMahon came out one day and said, "No, Vince, I'm going to fight you." And then Shane McMahon buys WCW from under Vince's nose. So now, not only have we got Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon, not only have we got son versus father, we've also got the owner of the WWE versus the owner of WCW. How massive is that? At the start of the show, Shane McMahon gives a shout out to the WCW guys who sat in a private box. Apparently those guys are supposed to do more on this show, but Sean Stasiak blabbed to like a dirt sheet, and then that put him in the doghouse of the WWE. They said, right, you guys, and they were all pissed off at him apparently. Chavo Guerrero was going on record speaking about this, saying how pissed off he was at Sean Stasiak, because they'd all thought that their chance had been blown because he'd blabbed about it. So they all got put in a skybox. The plans were shelved for a while. And who knows what would have happened if this was the thing, which was to basically launch the invasion angle. Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon, a fantastic street fight match. Mick Foley, special guest referee. All of a sudden, in the middle of the match, Linda McMahon gets out of her chair, she begins to move, and she nails Vince McMahon in the balls. Shane McMahon hits the coast to coast on the garbage can. Shane McMahon gets the pin. Shane McMahon beats his father. WCW's owner beats the WWF's owner on WWF's biggest pay-per-view of all time. How strange is that that's never really been talked about? Next match, TLC. Now this may have been the first TLC, or maybe it was at SummerSlam, and maybe last year's WrestleMania, and the review I'd just done, maybe that review was wrong when I said that was a TLC match. Maybe that was just a ladder match. But anyway, this is a proper TLC match. Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys versus the Hardys, and once again Edge and Christian get the win. This time, however, we have interference. The Dudley boys are helped by Spike Dudley. The Hardy boys are helped by Lita. And Edge and Christian are helped by Rhino. As a pure wrestling fan, I would have thought Rhino would have helped out the Dudley boys. But being a bit more of a smart and knowing more about it now rather than then when I watched it, knowing that Rhino came up with Edge and Christian and they were all from Canada and they all sort of... Oh no, Rhino was from Detroit, but they all work the same sort of scene because Detroit's quite near to Canada, isn't it? In terms of American cities and their closeness to Canada. So yeah, in the end, I think it was Christian is climbing up the ladder, and Rhino basically gets his head in Christian's crotch and then carries him up the ladder. Christian gets the title down. Edge and Christian win the tag team titles from the Dudley Boys. A very good match, awesome match. I cannot say enough about TLC matches, especially this one because it became sort of a 9-person match with Lita, Spike Dudley and Rhino all getting involved. Very, very, very good match. Next match, 19-man gimmick battle royal. That says to me that someone dropped out of it who was supposed to be in it. Iron Sheik won it. Basically, I think Iron Sheik only won it because he couldn't be eliminated. I wouldn't trust Iron Sheik to take a bump, so that's probably why they gave him a win. Also, he was a former world heavyweight champion for the WWF, so he sort of deserved it a little bit more. Yeah, people who were in it: the Bushwhackers, Duke the Dumpster Drozy, Doink the Clown, Nikolai Volkov, Tugboat, The Goon, Earthquake, the Gobbledygooker, Brother Love, Michael Hayes, One Man Gang, Kamala, Kim Chi, Jim Cornette, Repo Man, Hillbilly Jim, and Sergeant Slaughter. Now, semi-main event: Undertaker versus Triple H, the streak match. This match, they ended up knocking out the referee when I think Undertaker slingshotted Triple H into the referee when the referee was getting rid of a sledgehammer that Triple H had tried to use on the Undertaker, but the referee, I think it was Mike Chioda, ripped it out of his hands. So the referee's down, so Undertaker and Triple H battle all over the place. They end up going to this scaffold thing where they've got all the computers where they, sort the stuff out of when to fade to this or when to do what or whatever. Basically the production truck, but the live bit that's within the arena. They do the pyro and all that stuff from that little bit. You know what I mean? If you've been to a live event, you definitely know what I mean because you've seen it. Well, yeah, so they go to fight into that bit, and Undertaker choke slams Triple H off this thing, and it must be like a 15-foot drop. It's a big drop. It looks like it's to the floor, but then you see afterwards that it was sort of like a raised bit where it must have been cushioned for his fall. But yeah, Undertaker obviously ends up taking Triple H back to the ring, hits him with the last ride. Oh, that's it. Triple H is on the ropes and he's pounding the Undertaker. Then Undertaker just grabs hold of him, last rides him, bam, out of nowhere. Undertaker gets the win. Undertaker continues his streak. But don't tell the WWE, because they're pretending like this match never happened. Now, main event, World Heavyweight Championship. The WWF Champion, The Rock, defends against Stone Cold Steve Austin, who just won the Royal Rumble. And it was that amazing Royal Rumble of 2001 where he defeated Kane with a chair at the end, and Kane and eliminated so many guys. It was such a great Rumble. Drew Carey was even in it. This is the first Rumble, by the way, that I don't think I've mentioned it, but Pete Rose, 3 years in a row, sort of attacked Kane, and then Kane fucked him over. I think this was the first one where he wasn't involved. Yeah, Kane was in the hardcore match. It wasn't here. I forgot to mention it until now, but yeah, Pete Rose wasn't involved. But yeah, this was Austin versus Rock. This match was a great match. This match was no disqualification. It went all over the place. And at the end, Vince McMahon comes out. And just like last year, he screwed The Rock and John Triple H. Again, he screws The Rock once more by coming down to the ring with a chair. And first of all, ripping Rock off Austin when The Rock's covering him, and then he chases Vince McMahon around the ring. Vince McMahon jumps into the ring. Rock chases him again. Vince runs past Austin. Rock runs straight into a clothesline. Austin hits the stunner, I believe. Gets the pin. 1, 2, kick out. So he hits him. No, he hits him with a chair even. 1, 2, kick out. So Austin gets the chair and he beats the shit out of him with his chair. Gets the pin. 1, 2, 3. Austin is your new WWF champion, and he's turned on everyone. He's turned heel, and he's joined forces with Vince McMahon. He was the working class hero. Austin stood for all that was right with the WWF, and now he's gone and joined the bad guy, the evil owner, Vince McMahon. This was such a great moment in Austin's career. Great in terms of size, not in terms of how good it was. In my opinion, this is one of the low points of Austin's career in the WWF, because I really didn't like this turn. The next day, I didn't watch WrestleMania. The next day I went into school and I talked to a mate of mine about it, and it was it's the same guy I mentioned in the WrestleMania 12 review. He was the Bret Hart fan, and I was a Shawn Michaels fan. And he was like, "Oh, did you watch WrestleMania last night?" I was like, "No, I didn't. Did you?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "What happened?" And he was like, "Oh, Vince McMahon came out and helped Austin." And I was like, "What? Are you sure he helped Austin?" And I was like, "No, he came out and helped Austin, and they beat The Rock up with a chair, and then he ended up getting the win." I was like, "What? That's shit." And he was like, "Yeah, it was, yeah." And I was like, and looking back, I don't know why they did it. It didn't make any sense in my, well, they tried making it to make sense, but I didn't really get it. Obviously, Rock was on his way out to go make a film. Obviously, he never really returned. Well, he has now, but do you know what I mean? And the invasion angle was about to kick off my favourite era of pro wrestling, the invasion angle. I absolutely loved it. A lot of people hated it, but I personally didn't. What do you guys think of WrestleMania 17? Do you guys think it's the best of all time? I personally don't. I personally prefer 15. Mainly because although the show has 4 excellent matches in Austin, Rock, Undertaker, Triple H, the TLC match, and Kurt Angle, Benoit, it's got a lot of shit. It's got the 6-man tag, it's got the 3-man hardcore match, it's got Eddie Guerrero test, it's got China Ivory, it's got the gimmick battle royal. The Shane and Vince match is quite good as well, but it's got a lot of filler and it sort of balances itself out. It is a really good show, but it isn't excellent top to bottom. And it isn't, to me, what WrestleMania 15 gives to me, which is, in my opinion, that bit more. Let me know what you think of the show. If you think this is the greatest WrestleMania of all time, please explain to me in the box below. I'm not going to rubbish your ideas. I want to know your ideas. I want to know your opinions on stuff, and that's what this is about, isn't it? Share your opinions below. Let me know all about it. I'm going to hopefully try and find WrestleMania 18 now, because I don't have that. I don't have any of the next ones up to... I've got 21, so I'm going to have to go find all of those. So yeah, let me know what you think of this review, what you think of the show, what you think of this series in general. And with that, I'm out. Thank you very, very, very much for watching.